Welcome to another episode of the Rise Up podcast, where we explore ideas that fuel your growth and give you the strength to push through life's challenges. Today, we're diving into a topic that many of us can relate to, forming unbreakable habits, specifically around reading. We'll talk about how to make reading a sustainable and enjoyable part of your life, so it becomes something you do effortlessly, rather than out of sheer willpower. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned reader, this episode is for you. And don't forget, for those who need it, we've got a full PDF transcript available in the description to help you follow along. In life, forming habits that bring us closer to personal growth is key, and one habit that stands out is reading. But what if I told you that the way we approach reading might be hindering us more than helping? Often, people set lofty reading goals, whether it's to finish a certain number of books a year or tackle complex literature right off the bat. Yet, this can set us up for failure. Developing a lasting reading habit is less about ambition and more about enjoyment and sustainability. When we rely solely on willpower to read, we're bound to struggle. Willpower is fleeting. It's like a muscle that fatigues over time. That's why so many people give up on their reading goals after just a few days. But what if reading could become as natural as breathing, something you do not out of sheer force, but out of genuine interest? The secret lies in shifting the focus from quantity or difficulty to consistency and joy. The first step in creating an unbreakable reading habit is to lower the stakes. Instead of pressuring yourself to finish a book in record time, start with something simpler. Begin by just showing up. Visit the library once a week, browse for 30 minutes, and pick out a book that genuinely interests you. Forget about what looks impressive or educational. Choose something you know you'll enjoy, even if it seems too easy. A book you actually want to read is far more valuable than one you feel you should read. Another crucial piece of advice: don't commit to hours of reading each day. Instead, commit to manageable chunks of time, like 30 minutes a day. But here's the trick: don't force yourself to read. If the book doesn't grab your attention in the first 30 pages, give yourself permission to stop. This approach isn't about giving up easily, but about respecting your own interests. If you keep pushing through books that don't engage you, you'll quickly lose motivation. But when you find a book that hooks you, you won't need to schedule reading time. It'll happen naturally because you'll want to know what happens next. This method isn't just for beginners. Even seasoned readers benefit from this approach. We often think that experienced readers must devour difficult, intellectual books. But the truth is, every reader has off days. Even the most passionate readers sometimes need to read lighter, more enjoyable content to rekindle their love for books. Building a reading habit is much like fishing. Some days, you'll cast your line and reel in a great book. Other days, you might not catch anything, and that's okay. The goal isn't to read for the sake of reading, but to discover books that resonate with you deeply. This is how reading becomes a lifelong habit, not a chore. The real magic of reading happens when you're so absorbed in a book that time flies by without you realizing it. This is what I call the flow state of reading. In this state, your mind is fully engaged with the material, and your thinking starts to align with the authors. You're not just reading words. You're immersing yourself in new ideas, perspectives, and ways of thinking. This experience can change you profoundly, sometimes more than 10 half-heartedly finished books ever could. Let's also dispel the myth that only certain types of books are worthwhile. There's no such thing as a universally good or bad book. What matters is how a book connects with you personally. What challenges one person might bore another. This is why it's essential to read what speaks to you, not what society deems valuable. You'll naturally absorb more and retain better when you're genuinely interested in the material. So let's change the narrative around reading. It's not about how many books you can read in a year or how complex they are. It's about consistently finding books that bring you joy and keeping that reading habit alive without relying on sheer willpower. When reading becomes a source of pleasure rather than an obligation, it becomes something you can do for life. In the end, reading should feel less like a task and more like a journey, one that enriches your mind and spirit. And when it's done right, It doesn't matter how many books you read or how long it takes you to finish them. What matters is the experience you take away from each one. Thank you for tuning in to the Rise Up podcast. I hope today's discussion has inspired you to approach reading in a new, more enjoyable way. Remember, building strong habits is about finding joy in the process, not forcing yourself through it. If you'd like to revisit any part of today's episode or follow along with more detail, be sure to check out the PDF transcript linked in the description. Until next time, keep rising, keep growing, and stay strong.